Good morning, everyone. I know that it's Vlogtober, but I'm going to switch it up here a little bit and do a Vlogtober story time. So it's not going to be a vlog, it's going to be a story time of why I joined the military at 29. And I'm going to take you through the chain of events that led me there. And I'm taking you back to 2001. So the story is going to start in 2001 and it's going to end in present. But I have this pen because I wrote notes because I wanted this to be informative. This is an informative video for somebody who is at a crossroads in their life, maybe going through something and they don't know what to do. And obviously you don't have to do what I did that's so extreme and join the military, but it ended up working out for me. So whatever crossroad you may be at, something else might work out for you. So let's go back to 2001. Okay, so 2001, I was 24. I was 24 years old, and I ended up getting married to somebody that I met in San Diego. He happened to be in the Navy. And part of the reason I want to say we got married, I mean, we were young and dumb, and I'm not bashing him at all, because the events I tell you later, probably some of you guys might be like, ugh, he's not a good person. I don't blame, I don't know where he is to this day, but I don't blame him at all. He was 22, I was 24, and I had a child. And part of the reason why we got married, I would say, is because he got orders to Fort Worth, Texas. And I was still in San Diego, and so he wanted me to come with him. He wanted my daughter and I to come with him. And I forgot how long we'd been together, but I was like, I'm not moving across the state with any man that I'm not married to. I have a job here. I'm pretty secure here. I have my car, I have a job. I'm doing okay. I cannot move to Texas and not be married. At this point, I don't know. I think we really liked each other. Maybe we even thought we loved each other. I have no idea. But to fast forward, he ended up asking me to marry him. And it was probably because we enjoyed our relationship so much at the time that we didn't want to be separated. Looking back at that, I think that's the reason why we got married. I never think that we were like so in love, to where, now that I know what like love is, that was the reason. So we get married. We do we go to this guy's house who marries people, and that was pretty much it. I want to say a month later, we were packing all of our stuff and we were moving to Fort Worth, Texas. So one thing I'll say, not Fort Worth, Arlington, Texas. So one thing I would say, he's stationed in Fort Worth. We lived in Arlington. At the time, Texas was like, I don't know how it is now because I haven't lived there in years, but like you could get a job like this. So the minute I got there, I was like dropping applications. I was filling out stuff. I was getting calls back, and I got this one job, even though it was in Dallas, and I dreaded the traffic and I dreaded the hours. The hours were horrible, because I'd leave there. It was from like 11 to 7, which doesn't sound bad, but just with the traffic and with my husband's schedule at the time, we really didn't see each other, because by the time he got off work, he went to work earlier. By the time I got off work, I was just tired. And at 24, marriage is supposed to be fun. And it really wasn't becoming fun anymore. But the job that I was working at, I was doing really well. And even though the traffic had me coming home 45 minutes later after work, I was making $1,000 a week. $1,000 a week in 2001 is amazing for a 24-year-old, right? Right. So I'm making $1,000 a week. I'm telling him, you don't got to pay for anything. I'm paying our rent was like real cheap at that time. I forgot. I was paying the rent. I paid off all of our bills, like everything. And we were good. Like we were straight good. What I thought. That's what I thought. So, after a while of working that job, it was like a call center job, and they had gotten in trouble for something. It was a husband and wife's business, and they had gotten in trouble, and the company was going to close. I think we used to sell people who couldn't get house phones. People who couldn't get house phones, we were able to get them a phone. I forgot. It's been so long ago, but that's what the job was. And I think it was a big ass scam now that I think about it. But I was making good money. Okay. Fast forward, I start looking for jobs on my side of town, because the hours just wasn't working. They weren't working. I was tired of the drive. And so I start looking I got one job, and it was working, I forgot. something to 11 o'clock at night. I know I have notes, but these are things I'm adding in as I'm going. So I got that job, but I got off at 11 o'clock at night. So that was even worse. So I wasn't home cooking dinner. I wasn't, and he's a Southern dude. So he wanted dinner made. I wasn't home to do that, but I was working. I was working. I've always been taught to, I've been working since I was 16 years old. So, at the time, we had, back in the day when people had the Dell computers and people used to go into chat rooms and do whatever. So I guess while I was at work, that's what he was doing because I wasn't at home fulfilling my wifely duties. I was trying to make that coin. So a few times I caught him like talking to girls on there. I went off and it was, and we got in arguments just like married couples do. But I just started sensing that just something was wrong with the marriage. And this went on for like a few years. I finally landed a job at Aetna, was like maybe 10 minutes from my house. And I was working in the claims department and I loved it. I loved working at Aetna. Aetna was a great job. So now we're about at 2000. We're at 2004 right now. I get the job at Aetna. I'm working morning hours. I'm home to cook dinner. I'm all these things that he wanted in a wife, My daughter's enjoying school. She's in ballet. Like everything is going great. So I thought, right? So I was like, okay, God, you put me in a good place or whatever. We weren't in a good place. I think just working the long hours, he'd already like pretty much disconnected from me. And in my mind, I was just like, I'm a working woman. Most military wives I'm not saying most or all, most military wives, a lot of them, they don't work because they have multiple children and it's just cheaper for them to stay at home with the kids, right? Okay. So I wasn't going to do that because I was just I always needed my own money. I cannot let a man control my money. That's just always where I've been. I know I don't knock you for it. That's me personally. So I guess my husband at the time had went out and met this older woman and he fell in love with her. He fell in love with her or whatever. And he tried to tell me multiple times without me going back to like every detail that he didn't want to be married to me anymore. And I was just, I was going to church and I was just like, no, you don't mean that. Like, you don't mean, he meant it. He absolutely meant it. And one day I was at work, I'm checking stuff off of this checklist because I want to make sure I hit all the points. I was at church and when I came home from church, all his stuff was gone, like everything. So I call him and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? My daughter's like, she's like, where's daddy? And she called him daddy at the time. And even though he's not her biological father, he's from a previous relationship. And I was like, I don't know. So I called him. He's like, I'm not coming back. And I'm like, you're not coming back? Like, I just got out of church. I was like, you can't be serious. He's like, no, and looking back, he did try to tell me multiple times he wasn't happy in the marriage. Like I said, I wasn't home a lot because I was working and we disconnected and I kind of just ignored the signs. And so I remember just crying. I remember just like getting down on my knees and crying and praying and like, God, like I thought I was doing everything right. Why is this happening? And, I did the whole woe is me, but I still got up and, I explained to my daughter, just, everything's fine, whatever. I'm dropping her off at school. What is she, 4 at the time? 4, she's about 5 years old at the time. So, I just go on about my business. I'm like, maybe he'll just come back. I wasn't worried about bills because I was like, he was still giving me money too. That's the one thing. He was still like, I didn't even ask him to give me money. He's like, I'll pay the rent. But we need to get a divorce. I love this chick or whatever. And then come to find out, she calls me and tells me she's pregnant. And I was having issues having kids. So that's another thing I think was part of the marriage that he just wasn't happy with. I was having issues having children. I had an issue with my fallopian tube after I had my daughter. So having children for me was very difficult. My daughter is the only biological child that I have now. I have a stepson now, but I think that could have been an issue also. So she's pregnant and I'm at work and I find that out. I mean, she was a spiteful person anyways. And like, I just left my desk. I went in the office, I called my mom and I just started crying. And I'm a daddy's girl, but at this point, I really needed my mom. I needed my mom because I like looking back, I still remember the office I went to, and I was like, Mom, I don't know what to do. And she was just like, you can come home. She's like, you don't have to stay out there. And I was like, no, I have a good job here. It's not about, I can't make it in Texas. Like I was doing well. I was just really, really heartbroken. So there's a girl that, we weren't close at work. I had like my little circle at work. But this girl, I don't know why she came to me. I'd see her all the time. She sat like maybe 5 cubicles over from me. And she was like, she came over and just started talking to me one day. And she was like, I'm about to lose this weight. Cause she was a little thick. And she's like, I'm about to lose this weight and I'm about to go to the Marines. And I was like, the what? I was like, the what? She was like, the Marines. And I was just like, good luck with that, girl. You could have that. You could have the Marines. I'm not doing that. She's like, no, there's a program right now. She's like, I want more. She's like, you could join the military in active wartime, and they will pay you half your salary for the first year. And you finish your contract. And if you want to come back to Aetna, you could come back to Aetna. And I was just like, yeah, good luck with that. I go back to my desk and I start just thinking, because I didn't know, like, my husband was administrative in the Navy. So he worked, like, his hours to me were good. And I was like, wow, that doesn't sound too bad, but I still don't think I could do the whole Navy thing. Let me go ahead and start going online, Googling the Air Force. So I get online, I Google the Air Force, I call my mom, and I was like, Mom, if you had an opportunity to like stack money and retire in 20 years, or just stay at this job and work until I'm 65, what would you do? And my mom was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I'm thinking about going down to the recruiting office and talking to the recruiter about joining the military. This girl, I think her name was Kenya. This girl, Kenya, just told me about this program where you can join in active wartime and you'll still get paid half your salary here. And if I decide I don't like the military in 4 years, my job is secured here. Plus, I forgot to put in there, my job started doing a lot of layoffs too. So I didn't know if my job was secure. And that did start making me a little bit nervous. Even though I knew everyone liked me at work, I did my job. You just never know. That's another reason why this came up. So my mom was like, I support. She's like, I guess I'd work the job for 20 years. And then when I told her what it was, my mom was like, Stacy, you in the military. When I was younger, my dad used to try to tell me to go to the military because I was so hard-headed. He's like, you need somebody to get you whip you into shape or whatever. And my mom was like, I don't know if that's going to work for you, but we're going to pray about it. I was like, okay. So I was researching. And the following week, this is probably where are we? We are in April, maybe, of 2005. The following week, I go down to the recruiting office. And when I go down to the recruiting office, they say, Air Force person's never there. Like I go in, I was like, hey, I'm looking for the Air Force recruiter. Oh, they're not here. And they're like laughing and joking because the office that I went to had all of them in there. I don't know if a lot of recruiting offices do that still now, but you have the Navy desk, the Air Force desk, the Marines desk, and the Navy, the Marines, the Army desk, right? The Army, I was not going. I already knew that, right? So I said, okay, well, I'll just come. Do you know when they'll be back? They just started laughing at me like, do I know when they'll be back? They're like, when they want to be back. I was like, okay. So I waited a week. I went down there again. Air Force person's not there, right? And so then the Marine guy was like, hey, let me talk to you real quick. So he sat me down. He gave me a really, really good spiel. But you have to realize, I was athletic as a child. I'm now like 29 years old, right? I'm now 29 years old, or 28 at the time. And I'm like, I am not built to be no Marine. Like I don't think I can keep up athletically. I just don't think I could do it. But I took his card and I was nice. I went home and I prayed on it. And I finally got a hold of the Air Force recruiter. And I was 28. And that was the last age that you could be to join the Air Force. But we were in April and I was turning 29 in June. So there was no way that I could do all the stuff that I needed to do to get into the Air Force. So that was really discouraging because I was about to be 29 and they weren't accepting people that were 29 at that time. Now I think you can join all the way up to like 42, right? So they're not accepting people at 29. And I just got discouraged, and I started praying some more. I went back to work the next day. I pull up the Navy. I'm like, why not? So I go down to the recruiting office, and I called the recruiting office, and I was like, hi, I just wanted to make sure you were in there. I wanted to come talk to you. So I went, I hung up with him. I didn't know where my high school diploma was. I didn't know where all my transcripts were. I didn't know so I had to get all this paperwork. So I made an appointment to talk to him. I went and got all the paperwork that you need for the military, right? And then I had it in a folder, and I went down there, and I was like, I think I want to join the Navy. And I gave him like everything. And he's like, I've never had an applicant come down here with all this stuff. He's going through all the paperwork. He's like, check. He's like doing a checklist or whatever. He's like, there's one problem. He was just like, you would have to give up custody of your daughter to your parents or whoever if you want to join, because at this time you can't join being a single parent. So right now we're in April, and my husband had already like started the divorce papers or whatever. My husband at the time, I don't like referring to him as my husband because I have a great husband right now. And so I just went home and I brainstormed, and let me look at my notes. I brainstormed, and I was just like, you know what? I'll figure this out. I started looking at giving custody to my parents and going from there. That wasn't the only hurdle, right? This is like mid-April now, and he wants to prepare me to take an ASVAB in May, because he said if everything goes well, I'll leave in December. I have not done algebra. I have not done chemistry. I have not done science. I have not done any of these things in years. Like, it'd been over 10 years. Like, I'm 29 at this point. So I'm like, you have to, and this was so messed up. For men, you had to score a 35 on the ASVAB to be good to go to the Navy. For women, you had to score a 50. So I go down to the bookstore and I buy ASVAB for Dummies. And I call my friend who's in California. Her name is Felici. I call Felici, and she's in college right now. And I was like, girl, I need your help with this math. Like, the guy told me if I did good in English, which I knew I would do great. If I did good in English, I did pretty good math, I did good in science, I could get a decent job in the Navy. So I call her, and like every night we're going through the math problems. I have the ASVAB for Dummy. I didn't even look at the English section, because that was like nothing to me. I'm going through reading the science. The math just was not mathing. It was not clicking or anything. So I'm practicing with her, and I'm getting better and better. And then 2 weeks later, he was just like, okay, we're going down to take the ASVAB. I was like, okay, let's do it. When I tell you I prayed so hard on that ride to Dallas with him, I was praying so hard because I was just like, I don't want to fail this and have to take this again. Not only that, I was athletic growing up, but I hadn't ran or did anything in years. So I started going to the track and like jogging around the track. And then I used to run like track. So I was like, I need to get this athleticism back up, right? I started doing push-ups at home and all that. Anyway, so we ride down to the MEP station. And I remember going down and going into the room, and the lady was really nice. She's like, you have 3 hours, I think 3 hours to take this test. And no talking. We're all put at like these computers. And I remember the English, like I was just like whipping through it. I was like, whatever. The mechanics, like I was just whatever sounded good. Process of elimination. And the math was the one I was scared of the most. I was scared of math. So I go through it. I think I'm doing everything great. And I finish, right? I finish. And so they tell you what you score right then. They tell you what you score right then. They give you a paper, and then this is a paper that you give to your recruiter. So she gives me the paper, and I call my recruiter. I let him know I'm done, and I'm not opening the paper. Like I'm shaking. I'm like, I can't open this paper right now. I don't know. I just don't know what to do. He comes, I hand him the paper, the envelope. He opens the envelope and he looks down on it. And then he looks at me and he was like, you scored a 50. I was like, I scored. So I said, I can go to the Navy. He was just like, yes. He's like, the only thing we have to do now is figure out the childcare situation. So I went home that night and I just prayed and I just prayed and I prayed. And I still kind of wanted my marriage, but I was getting over it. Like I was getting over, because now all these other things were happening for me. And so, you know, God just put on, I'm a pretty savvy girl. Okay. I'm pretty savvy. And I thought about, I'm like, okay, we already have the divorce papers drafted up. Let me think about how I want to approach this. So I called my dad the next day, right? I started looking at jobs. They offered me to go in as an SH. They don't even have SHs, and they're called something else in the Navy now, but those are ship servicemen, and they're kind of like in supply. So they do barbershop stuff. They load all the produce. They work in the ship store. That was the job that I was supposed to have. And so my dad was like, yeah, he's like, yeah, Dad, once we get this childcare stuff and I can give custody of my daughter to you, I'm leaving in December. He was like, December? My dad's from Barbados, and my dad's, he's an islander. He's like, you can't go to Great Lakes, Illinois in December. And I was like, why not? He's like, it is cold. He's like, Stacy, you're not going to survive the snow. He's like, that. And now it sounds so ridiculous. But my dad made such a big deal, but that wasn't my dad here. That was my dad up there, putting that on my dad to put something in my brain to figure something out. And so he was like, there's no way. He's like, you need to see if you can go sooner. And I was just like, okay. So I go home, I brainstorm some more. I call my soon-to-be ex-husband. I tell him to meet me down at the recruiting station. And I told him, I will sign these divorce papers, but I am dating them for after I leave for boot camp. I told the recruiter, I want to leave for boot camp as soon as possible. I cannot go in December. And by this time we're already in May, right? End of May. And I was like, I can't go in December. And so he said, okay, what are you going to do about the childcare situation? And I said, don't worry, I have that worked out. And I have my husband with me. At first I made it seem like I didn't tell you that part. I made it seem like I was still married, but I knew I was going through a divorce. So I had to come real with my recruiter and tell him what was going on, because at first the childcare issue wasn't a problem because I was married. So he would have thought that when I was in boot camp, my daughter would just be with my husband. But I had to come clean with him about I'm going through a divorce. So he was like, well, I can get you to leave in June. You won't be a ship serviceman. You'll be an undesignated rate. And that means you don't really have a job. You work in a certain area. So they have seamen, firemen, construction men, airmen. So I was like, I'll just pick seamen. And so he stopped. He's like, you don't want to be a seaman. He's like, because he was an AO. He worked with bombs. He was like, if you do undesignated anything, you want to be an airman. And I was like, okay, I'll be an airman. So he put me down for that. I didn't even think about the job. He puts me down for that. I'm going in as an E1. I'm going in as an undesignated airman. And I told my soon-to-be ex-husband, I said, what day am I leaving for boot camp? And he's like, June 28th or 29th. And so I signed the divorce papers and I put July 7th. I just picked July 7th. 7th's a lucky number. I picked July 7th and pretty much went from there, because I knew that legally I would be married when I went to boot camp. And when I went to boot camp, my divorce would be final. So that got me in, right? Smart thinking, right? So let's check that off, because yeah. Now I want to talk, I already talked to you about when I went back to work, I had all the doubters, all the haters, everyone, not really haters. They were like, girl, you are not built for the military. And I was built for military, because here we are 19 and a half years later. They're all so proud of me right now too. I'm still friends with a lot of them on Facebook. So next step was, I told my parents, I was like, I need to get out of this apartment. I need to put stuff in store. All this happened so rapidly. It's really hard to go back to 2005 or 2005, 2005 and just remember every single detail. I'm just telling you as I remember. I put things in storage. I fly my daughter to California because I'm not thinking about the next part. I'm thinking I'm going to boot camp. They promised me I would get California. I promised me I'd get San Diego. So I'm like, okay, I'll be back. I'm putting my stuff in storage. I'll worry about all this stuff when I get back. So I signed the papers. Come to find out also, the chick that said that she was pregnant by my ex wasn't even pregnant. She was doing that to trap him. Whole nother story, which is crazy. So I give my job my notice. I leave for boot camp. I don't know if I skipped any parts, but I thought, let's just roll along. I leave for boot camp on June 29th. Daughter is with my parents. I moved out of my apartment in Texas, and I'm on the bus. Everybody's talking. Everyone's nervous. Almost everybody is 18, 19 years old. Okay. I think myself and only one other person were like older. And I just sitting back listening to everybody talk. I just was like, all right, I'm about to get in here, handle my business. This is gonna be a walk in the park because I just need to just stay incognito and just mind my business. So we're quiet. And everybody's laughing and joking. And I remember just pulling up. It's nighttime by this time, pulling up to this building, right? And so all of a sudden, I still remember the doors of the bus opening. And I just start hearing a lot of cussing. Get the F out of here. Da, 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 da. Hurry up. Grab your phone. So I'm like, is this for real? Like, we literally just got off the bus. We're tired. Doesn't this start like tomorrow? No, it started right then. They had us lined up. They were throwing out military terminology, which obviously we don't know what it is. They're telling us how sloppy we look, how whatever we look. And then they just start processing us in like cattle. That was the longest 48 hours of my life. I remember holding a folder, I brought brand new shoes. They get everything you brought that was personal. They made you put in the box. You put it in a box and you're sending it back home. What address do you want to send this to? You're writing it down, whatever. They had you bring supplies like tampons, pads, whatever. And of course I picked my favorite ones and my favorite brand because I thought that was for me, right? So it's 2 days of just filling out paperwork, not being able to sleep, getting a meal here and there. Your eyes like this, like the whole time. Tired, but there's processing. You're getting shots. Guys are getting haircuts, getting shaved. They're talking to you in briefs. They're giving you whatever. And finally, after 48 hours, you see where you're gonna sleep. I could not wait. I could not wait to go to sleep. I get in my little rack, and if you get a chance, you can pause this video and Google boot camp racks in 2005 because they don't look like how they look now. All right. There was no AC in the building. I was in Great Lakes, Illinois in June, and I rested my head on that pillow and it felt amazing. I want to say 4 hours later, I wake up to screaming, get up, the lights are on, get up, get out of your rack, da, da, da. We got this to do. And I'm taking my time because I'm like, Lord, this is what you wanted for me? This is what you wanted me to do? Like, what is going on? So I'm taking my sweet time. And there's a short, on there for a petty officer at the time. I don't even know where she is now. She's probably retired. Petty officer in Alvanada. And she was like, what is your problem? Get up. So I get up. I'm standing there. They're telling us stand at attention. I'm standing at attention, but my head's cocked to the side because I'm just like, I'm too old for this. I'm too old. Like, no, Lord, why did you place me here? Why am I in this position? Why am I here? Like, why? She walks up to me. She's like a little itty bitty thing. She's like, and she had just had a baby. She's like, this one's going to have an attitude. I can already see this one's going to have attitude. So she's like, I need you to keep your head straight. So I kept my head straight. We're going through marching. They're teaching us how to march, whatever. But she ended up having a soft spot for me, a real soft, because she knew I had a kid. And I tried to not get any job while I was in the military. In boot camp. I wanted to just stay in the back. So then they made me the Master at Arms. And if you know anything about the Master at Arms in boot camp, that's like the military police, right, in the Navy. And the Master at Arms had to make sure that everything was in order. And I think she did that because of my age. these RDCs are smart. It's usually because of my age. So the Master at Arms is also one of the most hated people in Navy boot camp because we get in trouble if we don't make sure that everybody's stuff is clean. Like, so I would get up, I'm like momming these people. I'm like, there's dust under here, there's this, and they're like rolling. I'm like, no, I don't care. Get this done, get this done, get this done. So that was like my job. So nobody likes like the Master at Arms because we have to enforce business. We have to enforce everything's clean. I have to make sure that you folded your rack the right way. Going back to bringing all my favorite stuff, this was eye-opening too. So they were like, pull out all your feminine products or whatever and put them in a bin. And I was just like, how am I going to know which one is mine? I'm like, that one's, they're beating your head. There is no mine. It is ours. So I was like getting up early to make, because people, of course, were picking mine. They weren't picking the cheap ones. They were picking, what did I use at the time? Because I've had a hysterectomy. I haven't had a menstrual cycle and whatever. But I had a favorite one. I had the favorite one, and they were burning through those. Those were gone. And then we ended up having to get them from like the store on base, but that was our starter kit. But it was also a message that when you're on the ship, when you're in wartime, when you're in different situations, you don't care about all that. Everyone is one team, one fight. You just share. So you did have the opportunity to go to church on Sundays, and trust me, and Sundays you kind of got at church, you kind of got to like mingle a little bit, like with other people. Like you'd see your favorite people from, I was in Division 266, you'd see other people from different divisions that you'd see marching by you, and you kind of got to like sit by them. You got to talk a little bit for that one little hour every Sunday. Like I just looked forward to church. I really, really enjoyed it because I felt like a real person. On Sundays, you got to write letters. So I'd write letters home. I'd receive letters. I'd read letters. My daughter would send me stuff. It was just like, it was amazing. Also, I was still getting paid by Aetna. I was getting paid half my salary by Aetna. So I remember, I don't know how she found out, but I remember she called me in her office and she was just like, she was like, recruit. And then she looked at me and she's like, come in here right now. And she's like, isn't today your kid's birthday? And I was like, yeah. She's like, go down and use the phone and call your kid. And I was like, for real? She's like, did I stutter? Go down and use the phone and call your kid. And I was like, yes, petty officer. So I go downstairs. I call my daughter. I'm like, how are you doing? She's like, mommy, what are they doing? Are you okay? And it was just, that moment in boot camp was so amazing to get to call my kid. And she eventually let me call my daughter at least 3 other times. I got like 3 extra phone calls, which is amazing. So we're getting ready to graduate boot camp. It's 8 weeks. And I ended up getting advanced from E1 to E2 because I did such a great job as a Master at Arms. But I know it's all because Petty Officer Alvaneda looked out for me. She knew what she was doing. Like when we used to run, she used to like, she'd be like, you better outrun these kids. You better show these kids. Cause she knew I was 29 and she was 29 and she was just had a baby and was like in the best shape of her life. So I wanted to do well, not for myself, but just for myself, but for her. She's like, you get these push-ups. Cause there were kids younger than me falling out, couldn't run, couldn't do whatever. And I was like, I got this. Cause I was an athlete. I actually was an athlete growing up. I played basketball and everything. So boot camp comes, my parents come. Rewind back. The day that we found out we were getting orders. Because I told everybody I was going to San Diego because that's what my recruiter told me, right? And I needed to go to San Diego because that way I'd have help with my daughter because my parents were in California. Everybody is excited because we're finding out where we're going. And we get an envelope. You all get envelopes or whatever. They're like, okay, everybody, this is orders day. This is orders day. You guys are going to find out where you're going. And I'm checking off everything that I told you guys. Bam, bam, bam. Boot camp graduation, but we're winding that. Okay, you're getting orders. So I get my envelope. I open it up. Everybody before me, like, I'm going to San Diego. I'm going to USS Ronald Reagan. I'm going to this. I'm going to that. I'm going to the other. Oh, I got orders to this. There's some people that got orders to other places that were happy. And I open mine and I see my orders and it says from RTC, that's Recruit Training Command, to USS Iwo Jima, Norfolk, Virginia. Norfolk, Virginia. That is nowhere. California is over here. Norfolk, Virginia is over here. I know nobody in Norfolk, Virginia. I've never even been close to Norfolk, Virginia. I've never even been like anywhere. I don't even know. I never even knew what Norfolk, Virginia was. I never heard of Virginia. Never heard of Norfolk. I sat in the corner. I just I didn't. I don't think I cried. I think I just took a deep breath and was like, what am I gonna do? And so Pediatra Avenida came over to me and she's like, what's the problem? Because she's not in control of the orders. And she knew where my daughter was. And I pulled out the orders and I looked at her and I was like, what am I supposed to do? She's like, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. Go call your family. So I go down to the phone, I call my mom and I was like, hey mom, I can't wait to see you guys in the next couple of days, because they were coming for boot camp graduation. And I said, but I have some bad news and I might need your help a little bit longer until I get settled. And she was like, what is it? And I was like, I didn't get orders to San Diego. I got orders to Norfolk, Virginia. And she was like, where? And, my parents are West Indian. They are citizens now, and they had to learn all the states and stuff. But my mom still forgets where is where. She gets everything. If it's not California, New York, Florida, my mom gets like confused with everything else. So she was like, where is that? And I explained it to her. And I was like, can you keep my daughter a little bit longer till I get down there and get settled? And she's like, yeah, that's not a problem. That's not an issue, whatever. So I see them a few days later at boot camp graduation. It's great. I get to spend time with my daughter. We go out to eat. We do all these things. At this time, she's 6 years old. So I explained to her, mommy has to go to work. And I always told her, the reason why I do this is for you. None of this was for me. This was because I didn't want my daughter to live a different lifestyle than what I started her out with. My daughter started out with a 2-income home. She was always in a stable home, and I didn't want her to suffer from that because of divorce, So she was fine. She was okay. They leave. I end up leaving Great Lakes. I go down to Florida for a few weeks to go to aviation school because I'm an undesignated airman. And then once I go to aviation school, I get some leave. I get to go home some more and then spend time with my family. And then I had sent my car there. So I drove my car by myself from California to Norfolk, Virginia. So I get there, I check in onto the ship, and obviously I'm the oldest person that's E4 and below in the division, which is fine because a lot of people didn't know I was older at first. They thought that I was their age. So I just kind of kept to myself, and then people found out I was older, and guys would try to talk to me, and I'm like, I'm not talking to no 18, 19-year-old boy. I'm here to focus. I'm here to, do this for my daughter. So I get there, I find out the ship's schedule. I find out we're leaving for our first deployment in June of 2006. So by this time it's October, because I've gone to boot camp, I've gone to my little school, I've checked on to the ship in October, and then in June we're leaving for a 6-month deployment. So it made no sense for me to get my daughter from October and then have to send her back to California in June and then come back and get her in December. I didn't want her school life to be irritated or interrupted. That's not irritated, interrupted by all these moves. So my parents have always been supportive. They were good with that part. So in June of 2006, I went on my first naval deployment. I got to see France. I got to see Italy. I got to go to Cyprus, Greece. I got to go to Dubai. I got to go to, where else did we go on that deployment? Cyprus, Greece was my favorite port. But yeah, that's basically what I did on that deployment. I came back from the deployment, and I'm now going to fast forward because I just wanted to tell you just how life can change. Also, I meant to tell you, my ex-husband contacted me, missed me, left the girl, left Texas, got out the military, left Texas, and was like, can we have, he called me like one night, like I've had the same number since, I think 2004. So he had called me one night drunk and he apologizing. I was like, I have no ill will towards you, but that you and I are like, that's done. That's never, 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 ever again. So, yeah, I'm now living in Norfolk, Virginia. I've done my 6-month deployment. I come back. It's 2007. I get advanced to E4 and become an aviation boatswain's mate. And I got capped, and cap is when the captain of the ship can advance you. So I did well enough in their eyes to be cap. I got hated on for that. Long story, but I can get into more military stories later if you guys want me to. And then in 2008, I met my husband that I'm married to now. And just to say, God does things in mysterious ways. I went through all of that stuff. If all of that stuff didn't happen, I would have never met my husband. My life wouldn't be the way I am now. I wouldn't be about to retire at 48 and not have to work again. I'm retiring next June 2025. Don't plan on working. We've already planned. We're prepared for that. But yeah, I met my husband in 2008, and I can tell you guys I could do a story time on how I met him. If this is already 41 minutes long, but I just wanted to put the story out there that your life can change in your 20s and it affect your 40s and the rest of your life. And you might be in limbo right now where you might want to take a leap of faith on something, where it's a career or you're lost or you don't know. And I in 2004 and 5, when all this was going on with me, I felt completely lost. And I can't believe it's almost 20 years later. And I look back at that experience and I'm grateful. I'm seriously grateful. It taught me so much. Even when I dated after I was divorced, I was so picky and I was so mature now that I was not settling for anything. Like if I saw a sign, and there were many signs, and I got married for the wrong reason in the first place. So I can't sit here and crucify and badmouth a 22-year-old guy who got married that thought he was doing the right thing. I'm not going to do that. I'm just here to say that, your life can change for the better, even if you're in a bad situation. Sometimes those bad situations come and you need that bad situation to create the situation that you are destined for your purpose. So I hope this video helps someone. It's 42 minutes. I don't expect anybody to watch this whole thing unless you're on a treadmill and trying to kill some time. But I really hope this video helped someone. And if you want to hear more stories, I can do a story on, I told you guys, I just hit everything, I think, on here. And if I didn't, I can go back and make another short story on different points of my military career. And like I said, how I met my husband. But yeah, hopefully this Vlogtober story time was something that got you through the day. And like I said, if I help just one person or make one person smile, I've done my part. All right, I'm not going to hold you any longer because this was a lot. This was a lot. All right, bye.